I feel extremely free when I'm dancing.
Chanel continue cette tradition de méladanse.
Le retour fondu.
Dance is an expression of the music.
Trois petits rois mi-auteurs.
Être danseur, c'est avant tout savoir se renouveler sans cesse.
Cambou, podcast. Perpetuating its historical links with dance, initiated by Gabrielle Chanel a century ago. Chanel is honored to support Benjamin Millepied's new creation, Grace, Jeff Buckley Dances. In his new ballet, the choreographer celebrates the mythical figure of the late 20th century rock scene, recounting Jeff Buckley's artwork and fate. In this new audio documentary, Chanel had exclusive access to the behind the scenes of this show.
I think you should open your arms. I am Benjamin Millepied. I'm choreographer.
Bonjour. Ça, après c'est bassin, bassin, bassin.
La jambe elle est basse. En fait c'est juste l'opposé. C'est juste ça en fait. Well, if I remember correctly, I think, first of all, I remember hearing Hallelujah when the album came out in a friend's apartment in the East Village, and that's where I lived. The East Village is where Jeff Buckley lived also, and it's where he was discovered. It's where he had these first New York concerts at a very small place on Saint Mark's between First Avenue and Avenue A. I'll never forget the first time I heard Hallelujah and I heard his voice. I listened to the album, of course, for a few years at a time.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6.
And as music can do to me, it started to inspire dances in my head. And so I think it was about the time of the pandemic where I started to think that there was a way, potentially, to tell his story. So I spoke to his mother, and his mother was really interested in this idea that there would be a show, based in dance to his music. It really gave her blessing to give me the rights to start to produce it. And obviously, like everything, it takes time. And then I'd say I read more closely, his biography and understood why I was so attracted to his story. And then read his journal, which is amazing, and the way that I realized you could piece together what he was going through, what he was writing, the whole journey of his life as this angel artist who really graced the earth and left us too fast in this completely operatic death of being drowned in the Mississippi River at sunset. So I decided to get to work, and a lot was figured out in the process of the creation. I didn't know that I would use text at the beginning, and then in fact we use a lot of text from the journal. I didn't want it to be a set of abstract dances. I really wanted to follow him and for the audience to be in this emotional journey with him, this tragedy really, but also full of joy and passion, melancholia, really outstanding, I think, assortment of emotion, because he was so sensitive and so alive that I think that's what you have in the show. You have all of these different emotions and felt very deep and explored and celebrated through his art. Let's go on. Really go like low, 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 and then you can keep this low, and now this is high.
Yeah. So brush, brush, brush.
I think part of the process for me was also, I realized that I identified with some of his experience as a human being and as an artist, so someone who became obsessed with learning an art form and mastering it, was what I was obsessed with as a child as well. And so you really have, I think, that sort of journey, you kind of really get a sense of his, and it's great because the music carries these emotions and some songs of youth and joy and just celebrating being alive in the world, but also then just his talent and his obsession with mastering the guitar, being in his room and learning the parts and playing them until his fingers bled, and for a while really being obsessed with just being a virtuoso singer.
Exactement comme ça. Donc du coup, ça vous l'avez fait face à face. Face à face, comme ça, c'est bien, mais c'est très bien. Le dernier vient là, et après on se recroise pour faire ça. Donc c'est très bien. Super.
I think his talent is so immense, like such a extraordinary talent, that the reality is that he could sing, he could play guitar like a god, and he was incredible. The arrangements of Grace are outstanding. So we really follow, it's really a series of tableaux, and there is a connection between songs and text that you really sort of see the ascent and also the descent of this artist who was so, I would say, also fragile, emotionally, and couldn't really handle the level of success and the pressure from the recording company. I don't believe he was equipped emotionally to withstand really the violence of such a world and the pressure of such a world.
Comment vous passez les bras sur l'attitude? Parce que toi tu les passes par en haut et les autres par en bas. Ce temps de flash dans l'attitude là derrière. Yeah, just maybe higher the arms. Yeah.
There's a dancer, Lou Marco, who is Jeff Buckley in the show. So you follow him throughout. And I was lucky to find him because he's really perfect. The sensibility, and he's an extraordinary dancer. So you have someone with this really stunning clarity and virtuosity who's also emotionally a really interesting person to watch. Someone you want to get to know when you watch him. It's just endlessly interesting to watch. And I think that was probably true of Jeff, whether he was drinking water or walking down the street. So Lou represents Jeff, and the dancers around him are characters of his world throughout the show. They are friends, there's a lover, they are the characters of his life without having specificity with, but they're just his world. I use recorded video films that are made, stills, a lot of stills, photographs that I've taken where I went, where he lived, the places the ground that he walked on, and atmosphere and things that place emotionally and support emotionally the scenes in the piece. And also I would say we also have these moments, just really these moments of like live cinema on stage, because you're kind of creating scenes, like a cinema scene in view, or maybe it's him in conversation with a lover in a bed. Like they're just, I didn't want to close the door to any forms that could allow me to tell the story the right way. So it's really a combination of dance, of text. He speaks his journal. The journal is spoken by other characters.
You're opposite of them.
Okay.
Okay.
Mais même là c'est genre 1, 2, 3.
You're supposed to be together.
Okay.
And he's
in the middle.
yeah.
Maybe you can make more hints in the music.
I chose songs from Grace. I chose songs from the album what was to be the second album, songs My Sweetheart the Drunk. I mean, also just all the acoustic recordings, also the album with Gary Lucas, and even Purcell's Dido's Lament, which there's only a kind of not a great recording, but it's enough to give you the extraordinary quality, when he sang his only opera really that he ever sang, which we haven't, I don't want to say too much, but it's towards the end of the show anyway.
Voilà. Tac, tac, and slow motion. It's like, time stops.
The Dido Lament's lines are "Remember me." That's what he sings. "Remember me, remember me." So it's because he was to me, it's really, there's a tragic operatic quality to the life of this artist and the way that he died and the mystery around it, the grace around it too, the fluidity around it. I mean, and these themes of death and water are constant in his journal and some of the songs and even poems that he loved. But so I think that's the last piece of the night, and with a very, very simple ending in a way that I think is the right one for the piece and for him. There's some that The Boy with the Thorny Sides, the Smiths cover is incredible. It's really represents kind of youth, and there's the text that's written in the introduction is this poem that he wrote, like talking about I remember this, I remember that, I remember.
And then time stops here again. Oh, yeah.
Dishes in the sink, and it's all memories of childhood. So it's read as the song begins, and it's really about him growing up and being a kid. It was like a really fun kid, it seems, and very joyful and a little bit eccentric and just full of talent, just full of genius.
Tu vois? Je crois que ça faisait un S plutôt que là, tu t'accommodes vachement en fait. I think it's an S. Voilà.
Corpus Christi is also very angelic, very poetic. So that's quite a poetic moment where we have both a dance, a duet going on, and there's him in his room where he spent, I think, a lot of time as a child, highly likely. And I think it does represent this sort of angel-like and also the kind of solitude, I think. I'm pretty certain he was... It's hard stuff to have, his dad that he, only met once, and I don't think it was particularly simple. And that's where someone becomes an artist and has to throw his emotions into something and express them. So that's a particular moment that's as poetic as I could make it, and creating layers where the dancers on stage also, at one point, he mirrors what the dancers do, and so you have the dance can also express what's going on inside him.
this step, ideally for me, has to be a bit more side to side. I don't know, but I used to walk like this. I used to run like this on the street. Yeah, that's how I go. But not, so it's not straight because it's just not as interesting straight. So it's really hips, whatever it is, hips. It's side to side.
I've been always on photography personally. I navigate between these things. I love light on stage, I love light on screen. I think those forms are just forms of expression for me. And now there's text, which is I directed a movie. So it's quite interesting actually to try to use these elements and create an organic journey and structure where they have a reason to be there. I think that's the thing, is like, if it feels like the narrative is, there's no cut, there's no, you're pushing forward the narrative and the emotions, and like every element has a reason to be there, then it's worthwhile, and there's never any reason to not try things. At least, I leave the door open for experiment. And I have worked with live video a lot in shows and recorded video, and I've been on set for a movie, so it was great to bring these elements together, and it felt necessary. I felt like I couldn't have, because I think at the end of the day you want people to walk away having learned something about Jeff Buckley, getting to know him better, to know his music better, and so that's the point. And Just Dance would have been weak. Especially when you have a journal that's so extraordinary, as a resource of poetry, really of rock and roll poetry. I mean, they're really strong, and sometimes it's just words, and sometimes it's reflective, and sometimes it's just a self-motivation, and you get to know who he is. And I didn't go dive into more of the journal. I'm just taking what was published, and I respect that. His mom had it's probably a very intense thing to figure out how to create a legacy for your own son who passes at 30. Yeah, and of course I make my own opinion. I certainly think everything's there and it all makes sense. You understand why he struggled and who he was and why the legacy is so outstanding, and maybe even why he died. It's so strange, but there's something ephemeral, like a butterfly, that has had this grace and this genius that was fleeting. I hope people walk away with a love for the music and a love for him, and maybe for those who know him, to get to know him more. I think a lot of people will discover songs they don't know. People stayed stuck on Grace, but in fact there's a lot more. So it's rediscovering songs and rediscovering and falling in love all over again, but it's also for a whole new generation to potentially, really, really love him.
Thank you everyone so much. Amazing run. Top. Just really give me a real reach. Yeah. Good. Okay. Alors, New Year's Fair.
Cambon Podcast.